In the 1960s, there was a lot going on. We had the civil rights movement, we had the Vietnam War, we had presidential assassinations, we had the Cold War brewing in the background. It was very much a very strange time, at a time that had a lot of people were doing high volumes of drugs. Everything seemed like things were going in a great direction. Well, there is some things about the 60s that weren't so great, besides the war and everything else. But the one thing I want to talk about was commercial flight in the 1960s. Now, in the 1960s, flying was seen as very much a glamorous, exciting, stylish thing to do. It was also seen as something that if you did it, you were very brave, because statistically speaking, you're more likely to die in a plane crash in the 1960s than a car crash by today's standards. So most people that did go on these planes, there were people that had vast amounts of wealth. There was also very much wonder and awe around flying, that we could actually get in these planes. Unlike today, like, we take it for granted, but at the time everyone was like, wow, we're in a plane, we're in the air, this is amazing. And this wasn't something that we think about much today, but it was something that was very much exciting for people at the time. People that got on these planes, you know, they received gourmet meals, steak, lobster, you know, they could smoke 24/7. There was no big sweaty guy on top of them, everyone was spaced out. You know, you could get on the plane 20 minutes before your flight, you didn't even need to show ID. It was a dream. We as commercial flyers today, we don't get to experience. It also caused a lot of problems, like hijackings and bombings on these flights, because no one was checking. By today's standards, it's insanity. So that's kind of why flying was so dangerous in the 60s. There's a lot of plane crashes that occurred, and I wanted to talk about one specific plane crash which occurred on the 6th of January 1960 on a farm 1.5 miles northwest of Bolivia in North Carolina. National Airlines Flight 2511 was actually originally National Airlines Flight 601 from a non-stop flight from New York to Miami. Now, originally the flight was to go ahead at approximately 10:30ish p.m, but upon maintenance check, pre-check flights, it was discovered that there was actually a crack on the windscreen on one side of the plane. So it was decided that 2 replacement planes would be sent instead. One was an Electra plane and the other was a Douglas DC-6 plane. So on a first come first served basis, 79 passengers got on the Electra plane and they arrived safely to Miami. The remaining 29 passengers and crew got on the DC-6 plane, which unfortunately, being Flight 2511, would not make its destination. So what happened? Well, originally when the flight took off, everything was going according to plan. According to an article written by the Victoria Advocate on January 7th, Richard Rudolph was quoted saying, "We heard an engine going chug-a-chug, like it was cutting in and out. Then it sounded like tin doors and windows were ripping off. Then there was a big boom like dynamite." Now, Richard looked out his window and couldn't really see anything, so he didn't think much of it at that particular time. It wasn't until the following morning, when his son MacArthur came out to tend to the farm, that he discovered the plane crashed around the property. On arrival, investigators were able to see that there was some sort of explosion that occurred, possibly in the passenger cabin near the fuselage. One thing that stood out initially when they arrived at the scene was the fact that there was one body found 16 miles from the crash site. This man was named Julian Frank. Now, Mr. Frank was someone who was very much seen as the biggest suspect to this particular bombing. A report done by the Civil Aeronautics Board in 1960 determined there was many different theories that they went through as they investigated the scene. After further investigation, it was determined that some sort of dynamite had made the plane go down. It wasn't caused by mechanical failure or any sort of freak accident like lightning or a propeller being hit by some sort of foreign object. The other thing that stood out with Mr. Frank was the condition in which his body was found, which was not consistent with the rest of the victims in this particular plane crash. So according to the Civil Aeronautics report, Mr. Frank showed an extensive avulsion of the lower extremities, and x-rays showed numerous foreign objects to be embedded in his tissue. The Civil Aeronautics Board never said out straight that they believed that Mr. Frank was involved. All they did was present the evidence. Now, the strange thing about Mr. Frank that kind of made investigators feel like he was someone that was very much possibly the cause of this explosion was the fact that he was hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt at this time. He also took out a $900,000 insurance policy just not long before his flight. So these kind of things would not really favour him in the best light. Now, the Civil Aeronautics Board concluded their report by stating, "The board determines that the probable cause of this accident was the detonation dynamite within the passenger cabin." All they were able to say was that what caused it, they weren't able to say who caused it. So blame was never really put on Mr. Frank, although he was the only suspect. The fact that he was in debt and the fact that he took out life insurance would suggest that he was very much possibly involved in this particular explosion. The fact that it's unsolved is what makes it very interesting, and even 60 years later to the day, we still don't know what really caused it. Was it Julian Frank? Maybe. One thing that is for sure in terms of this case is that I am sure glad that I did not have to fly in the 1960s. Thanks for watching the video, I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to be doing kind of a mix and match of different things, and I just thought this case was very interesting, so I thought I would talk about it. I'll leave a link to all the sources that I found this information with below. If you enjoyed it, please like, please subscribe, please share, and you know, maybe next time I do something less grim. You know, maybe I'll do about unicorns, the history of unicorns or something, I don't know. But I hope you liked it anyway. More videos coming soon, and yeah, peace out.